Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Gentleman, Season 1, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So the opening to this episode kind of like falls in line with some of the conversations I was having at the end of the episode, where things are, multiple parts throughout last episode's discussion was about how things aren't as kosher between Eddie and Susie, because like I said at the time, and he even admits it, that because he's talking to Jeff and Jeff's like, okay, like I thought you and Susie were getting along fine, and they were, but it's like because for a little while, despite everything they've kind of got mixed up in, I think Eddie did kind of forget who Susie is, that she can be very cutthroat. Once again, we kind of got that in episode 1, but I think so much has happened in between that she hasn't been as vicious. I mean, she's kind of handled stuff, but not to the same extent with the whole, I think it's one thing after another, but it's like, he's been so caught up in like the fun of it that he actually does get along well with Susie that it kind of did blind him a little bit. They're like, it was kind of like a snapback to reality of, oh, this is who I'm in bed with. This is the type of person. And like, once again, there's always been a level of transparency between him and Susie. I think that's the thing too of, oh, she's going to lie about something like that. Once again, what else is she going to lie about? If she's willing to take Jethro out, like what's to say she won't, it's a reminder, she'll take me and the rest of my family out if need be too. So he's trying to approach this situation because he recognizes now, yeah, Bobby and Susie are never going to let me go, which we as the audience know that, but it's a stark thing that Eddie needed a reminder of that. He was naive enough to believe he could just walk away when this is not the type of business you walk away, especially considering how deeply rooted the Glass family is when it comes to the investment that is your family. So Jeff tells him like, hey, like smell this, it's all about patience. It's like this, not a lot of people wait long enough for this to kind of like referencing the alcohol, and it's like, right, you got to be patient. You can't let them know what your plan is, what you're really thinking. You do what they want you to do, and you plan for every eventuality. And it's like, in the long run, did Eddie plan for every eventuality? Because that's the thing, you can't plan for everything, but we'll see if Eddie planned for most things, because there are so many different X factors, like his brother, for instance, who has been feeling himself because him and Jimmy have been working on a side project. I wonder, maybe it wasn't Gabrielle who was texting him last episode about address ? Maybe it was either Freddie or someone associated with Freddie, because we find out they've made a new strain of weed. And if I'm not misunderstanding the conversation, basically it's a blend of crack and weed. It's like you use like cocoa seeds to like be the foundation for this particular strain of weed. And he wants to present this to Susie despite Eddie doing everything he can to get their family from underneath. Because he's like, hey, they killed Jethro, which Freddie doesn't even really remember. He's like, oh, all right, the kid with the headphones. It's sad. Oh, that's awful. We're in bed with these people. But he's also like, no, I get it, Eddie, you want to back away. But he wants to drag their family deeper into it because he's talking about the profitability of it. It's also because Freddie's felt so aimless. So much has been out of his control. This is an opportunity to take the reins of my life and go in a direction where I know I can succeed. I can prove my worth, because he's felt worthless up until this point in time, because the only thing he had go for him was the dukedom, and it's like, well, that was taken from him by his brother in a lot of ways. So it's like, this is something I can take on my own, and it's like, you're not cut out for this life. But even though he said his brother was, but it's like, you yourself are not really cut out for it, but you think you are. So yeah, it almost kind of goes back to that mercy point where it's like, he's like, right, this will be a future thing I'll never steal from you, which is applicable, but it's like, you would think after a scary moment like that, it would keep you from ever wanting to tackle anything in the criminal world when you're that close to getting parts of your body sliced off. It kind of makes you reevaluate things, and to some extent, it did make Freddie reevaluate things, and he approached it from another direction in an attempt to double down on what he's mixed up in now. So, which obviously there's an irony behind the fact is Eddie had to double down into this business because of you. So, but either way, Eddie has to clean 15 mil for the Glass family, and they're saying like, hey, you do this for us, we're all kosher, that will be the profitable margin, so that yes, we've made a lot of profits and you can exit out, but we won't be able to exit out our deal until we clean that 15 mil. How long will it take? 3 months. And Eddie's like, that's taking too long, we need to expedite that. So ultimately we're revolving all of this around Jack's fight, upcoming fight. It's gonna be like I don't know if it's a championship or is it leading towards a championship. Either way, he meets Henry, who they have some camaraderie of like, right, they've both served in the military, and he's the one that can clean the 15 mil, because the original person they've got set to clean the 15 mil is a dude named Chucky, who wants to use spicy Korean corn dogs to be the vehicle in which they're cleaning the money. And Eddie's not sold on the notion, but Chunky's like, yo, this is what it is. Like, come on. I know it sounds wild and bananas, but the fact of the matter is this is solid. He's basically saying, like, every venture I've ever had before where I've sold something weird has been the means of cleaning money. It's a proven thing. But I'm like, we find out Susie later on kind of gives him the go-ahead to, no, take as much time as you need, because they want to draw out this relationship with Eddie as much as possible, because Susie, Bobby probably would take a different approach, but Susie's probably trying to take the more amicable approach of just slow rolling it. So like, yeah, keep moving the goalposts. Bobby probably would take a more active position of, let me kind of show you, rather than kind of like, because like I said, I think Susie's taking the diplomatic approach, and I don't know if her father necessarily would, so, but I mean, maybe I'm mistaken. But that was kind of all a moot point at one point in time, because Chucky found out that Jack was screwing his lady, which I'm like, that is kind of stupid. Once again, it's that conversation of don't shit where you eat, especially when Chucky's still there doing business. I mean, I get it, that's the only time, like, at least pick a time where she could sneak away. You go to a hotel or something. Why on God's green earth would you, once again, eat where you shit? I mean, you're literally still at the ring, and they're in a couple rooms away doing business. That's stupid. But it's supposed to be exciting and blah, 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 blah. It's probably not a recent thing either. This probably wasn't the first time. They've probably hooked up before, and it's like, ooh, we're getting so hot and bothered by it. I can't even wait. It's like, that was stupid. Susie tried to break it up because she saw them on the security camera, and then, like, but sadly Chucky showed up. He was running his mouth off to Jack. He landed a hit on Jack, and Jack laid him out. My thought with me was going to be like, what if Jack fucks up, punches him, he falls, and cracks his head open? Turns out, obviously, Chucky's alive and fine, but I thought, like, that could have gone sideways. You really could have screwed the pooch. And it's like, yeah, Jackie, you're not thinking, because you're, as I brought up previously in a previous episode, might even been last episode, where I was like, oh, she likes Eddie, but she's a no-nonsense type of lady who would never mix business and pleasure. It's like, yeah, it seems like Jack's kind of got the issue of not being able to control his penis type of situation. So it doesn't seem like this is the first time, not necessarily just with Chucky's misses, but also just any lady situation. It seems like he's just kind of a walking erection type of conversation seems to be kind of had around him. But it's like, yeah, that was really stupid. And I guess it speaks volumes about their relationship that Susie doesn't chastise him, at least to what we saw. She did. She got him a little bit, but not beyond that. She never was like, you're stupid or whatever. Like, she never really got into him like that, because they're family, and it's like, yes, you messed up big time, but I'm not going to sit here and chew you out for it. She was very, like, amicable to some extent. I mean, to be fair, she was too busy, like, trying to fix the situation, make things good with Chucky. Doesn't help the fact that he blasted it on social media. He's like, yo, you see this guy? You basically, like, oh, you, like, you do this, you smash his windows, you fuck his dad, penetrate. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, because I was like, am I making him? I was like, no, I think I remember. No, the exact phrasing was, you shag his dad, penetrate. It's like, Jesus. But they had put the word out there, so it's like, yeah, Jackie, kind of keep it low key and stay at Eddie's for a bit and train up for the fight that you have upcoming, because he needs to focus on that. This goes back to what I was bringing up before about I'm taking a couple leaps, jumping around a little bit. Sorry, but going back to the point I was making about Jack and Susie's relationship. There's a whole conversation later on between Susie and Freddie, and he had made a remark about, like, right, I'm doing this business venture, it's not a small project, me and Jimmy, whatever the case may be, but he's like, right, my brother wants out of it, it's understandable, he's probably going to do something effed up, but like, hey, let him do whatever he wants to. Me, I'm still here, I'm someone that you can work with. And he says, God forbid, I don't want anything to happen to my brother, but let's just say, for example, something did happen to my brother, it would all go to me. And then Susie makes the point of, you know who that is? She's like, that's my brother. I would do anything for my brother. You should think about that. That's something you should really kind of sit here and chew on. Kind of, because she, the implications of, if you need to remove my brother from the equation, God forbid, I don't want anything to happen to. But if it did, like, for Susie, it's like, the fact is you're even thinking about that. I mean, truth be told is, you won't admit it, but it's crossed your mind since the beginning. The moment the dukedom and everything was stolen from you, I have to put that in quotes, was stolen from you, you have thought about it like, well, if my brother dies, it goes to me. So it's like, yeah, but that speaks volumes of that's immediately where your mind went. This is your brother who has done everything for you. We've even seen it over the course of the show of him doing everything for you, and it hasn't been a two-way street. In fact, it's been a pretty one-way street of him constantly having to save your ass and fix your fuck-ups in particular, so I think it's interesting. That goes to my point of just how Susie is like, yeah, I'm ride or die for my brother. I love my brother. I'd do anything for my brother. Like, the fact is your brother, I know, will do and has done anything for you, but yet you are here talking like this. It's like she recognizes how effed up that is, and she wants Freddie to recognize how fucked up that is. That it's like that you're already plotting this and stuff like that. You having your own business venture, sure, but the fact is you said the quiet part out loud. You're like, right, my brother could die and I can end up taking over things. You can try and spruce it up, maybe like, God forbid, no, I don't want anything to happen to him. But if it did, once again, putting the implication out there, it's all kinds of fucked up. So, especially, I think that's important to have that notion, especially when Eddie and Susie had their conversation where he was like, don't underestimate me. The fact is that I would do anything to protect my family. You don't know what lengths I'd go to. He's obviously willing to cross any line, but because this is after his encounter with Chucky, because she had told him, like, hey, Chucky says that after, like, we don't know what Susie did, but Susie immediately made him, he was like, I'm sorry, Susie, I kind of was out of pocket, I'm going to take down all the videos, I'm going to delete all my social media, I'm going to make a public apology, I'll do the money, I won't even take a percentage of this whole situation, it's all going to be good. It's like, how long is it going to take? Oh, it's going to take 2 months. And then she lied and told Eddie it was going to take 4 to 5 months, and he's like, right, I can make it take as long as you want to, like because she probably had broached him with, oh, can you make it take long? Once again, she wants to move the goalpost just to keep Eddie around, at least to a certain extent, keep dragging this out, because eventually he'd get tired, but if at least you give him a visible goal, you'll think he'll just be a lapdog. Because that was a conversation I never commented on. I'd actually forgotten until now that Susie had made this point with Pete in the first episode about how their whole thing is about, essentially she used the metaphor of how they run shit as like a metaphor through the lens of training dogs. Like, there's wild dogs and we train them to heal when we tell them to. I'm paraphrasing it very loosely, but it was kind of in that vein. But either way, when Eddie went to go deal with Chucky was like, hey, yo, I saw how you acted. You thought like I was an idiot when I brought up the Korean corn dog thing, so like you need to apologize. The only way other people will believe in it is if you believe in it. He's like, dude, fine, do whatever. I don't like this notion, but I'm going to do it. Let's just get the job done. But no, Chucky is Chucky, and he kept pushing and pushing, and his right hand, like hype man, was pushing and pushing. He's like, eat the corn dog. You got 10 seconds to eat the corn dog because what Chucky says goes. And then it just got to the point that Eddie just snapped. Which is so interesting too, considering Chucky had just said the whole point of, oh, there's a darkness in you. Maybe he meant it a different way. But it's like, yeah, why snap on a guy you admitted has darkness in him? And he put his right-hand guy down. This is especially after he found out that Susie lied to him yet again and was trying to stretch out the goal. It's like, oh, she purposely told you to be slow when it comes to washing this money. And that's when he popped off, and he's like, all right, put the bags in the fucking car. And Chuck is like, yes, sir, sure thing. It's like, yeah, he got scared in that moment. But because Eddie was making other moves this episode. He was making his dealings with Henry, who introduced him to, oh god, I forgot the other dude's name now. He's the guy that's actually going to launder the money. And I love it. It's like, yeah, like his problem is he's so boring. He's the one guy that can make making money boring. And it's like, yeah, he'll solve your insomnia, just like, and I love the voiceover where you could clearly see him explaining things, and obviously everyone's eyes are glazing over, and even the blah 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 blah. I love that whole bit. But yeah, it was going to wash the money. Eddie wanted it done in 2 weeks, which Henry co-signed. Like, yeah, that'll happen. We'll make this happen. And I was curious if this was going to be a situation of, are you going to make Jack take a fall or something? It's like, he's too prideful to take one, so no matter what the circumstances may be. And Susie was never in a position to be like, hey, I want you to take a fall. So I'm like, nah, she would never ask him that, because I think that family as a whole is too prideful. But at the same time, Eddie reaches out to Stanley, and it's like, yo, let's make a deal. It's like, right, I won't give you like the man or the place that you're looking to buy, but we could do kind of a quid pro quo type of situation of, I need you to remove the glasses from my life and everything in my family, but I also want them to come out of this unscathed, which they don't at the end, because, hey, the guy Jack goes up against in the fight is actually a lot better than everyone thought he was, because his record was fixed, because there were most of his fights were fixed. He's like, yeah, he's not someone that has like a whole lot of ego and pride. If he needs to take a fall, he'll take a fall, but it's racked up the betting, because it's like so scaled against him, because like, oh, out of 30 fights he's only got 3 wins and like 27 losses or something like that. But given the nod from Henry, he'll lay Jack out, which he ultimately does. But it's like, yeah, you don't really know who I am. The fact of the matter is, I'm here to absorb your business. So you can either take it and be amendable to the circumstances of me like owning your entire operation, or we can have a problem. So now I'm wondering, now this kind of goes back to like, okay, so is Henry just a new opponent on the board? Is he connected to the Gabriel thing? Or is that Stanley related, or is this something on its own? I'm just not clear on like who's with who in the grand scheme of things. You know, it's like there's a lot of pieces on the board, and I'm just not knowing. I mean, that's the whole point of this thing of like, you don't really know who to trust, and you know, you're making a deal with the devil with Stanley, but like, so does that mean Stanley and Henry are associated, or is the Stanley thing a completely separate thing from the Henry thing? It seemed like it was separate, but those things coinciding of like, oh, like the maybe like the Henry thing is its own thing. Whether they're connected or not, it still puts Eddie in a terrible spot, because Susie's going to be pissed at you because she wanted to do business with Chucky being the one who launders the money. You went to Henry behind her back and signed off on all of this. You made it perfectly clear that you two weren't on good terms anymore, him and Susie. So what happened to Jack? She's going to blame him, because even she's like, right, I'm not going to like, you know, it's the same kind of conversation of you don't negotiate with terrorists. It's kind of that thing of you're a person trying to hostilely take over our operation. If we bend the knee to you, then we're going to be under you. And it's like, right, my brother would say the exact same thing. But I love that that kind of monologue she was going on about how, like, right, you think like, oh, I don't know who you are. It's like, I know exactly who you are. And she had referenced like this particular battle of someone going to I'm butchering the whole metaphor and point she was. The point was, you don't know who you're fucking with. Like, the fact of the matter is, she's like, oh, you think you have your small army? I have the state. We have a lot more say than you think, and a lot more reach and power. And the fact is, you were not prepared. You know, you got all this smoke, and you don't want the smoke. You know, you're not ready for this fight. And he's just kind of like, well, good luck to you, after like Jack gets laid out and she's in the back of like the ambulance with them. It's just that back and forth where you see Eddie sitting in the chair at his house, and then we see her in the ambulance staring, because it's like, right. I don't know if he knows what happened with Jack, and maybe he got the go ahead about it. I guess that's where the washing of the money was. The bet was all. That's where I'm like, I think the bet was placed on the other opponent, and now that Jack lost, like, that's how the money's going to get laundered. And now, because yeah, the guy who's laundering the money's an account dude. So once again, it's like, yeah, they'll get their 15 mil. Well, it's going to be more like, what was it, 14,250,000, because Home Dude's getting his 5% cut. But yeah, because of that, like, they're still going to get their money, but Susie's not going to be too happy about that. So she's going to put a lot on that on Eddie, and I'm curious to see how he responds. Will he be like, I don't care, it is what it is, your brother's fine, they might have got his shit rocked, but he's okay. Her and Eddie are definitely not going to be okay. And listening to what Freddie said this episode, she might be more inclined. It's like, yeah, like, you will be a lot more amendable to what we want, whereas Eddie is an issue. So it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. Like I said, I just don't know who's fully made what plans. Like I said, how much of Henry's business and what he's doing is just Henry, and how much is like Stanley connected to that, or Stanley hasn't made his moves yet against the Glasses, despite Eddie being like, I don't want them to walk away unscathed. It's like, well, Jack didn't walk away unscathed, but once again, that might be a, hey, that's Henry's side of things, and it has nothing to do with the moves that Stanley's going to make. Makes you even wonder, like, once again, is Henry the mastermind behind a lot of stuff that's come towards the Glasses? Because he's been waiting for an opportunity, a crack in the armor to, like, take a shot at them, and Eddie gave him that opportunity. So once again, it goes back to the point I brought up earlier. Earlier in the discussion, you can't prepare for every eventuality. You want to be able to prepare for most of them, but it's inconceivable to have a contingency for everything. But the question it becomes, well, how much of a contingency did Eddie have for the fallout of all of this? You know, are we going to have this reveal like in the next episode or two? Most likely in the season finale, of how much did Eddie prepare, like what was set in motion, and how this all plays out. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.